She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another dame, she solving another case. Cause she litigate with dignity and grace. She the queen, yeah, that's Queen Esquire. Legal trouble, she getting you out the fire. Another dame, she solving another case. Cause she litigate with dignity and grace.
Hello, litigators and opinionators. Court is now in session. Happy Monday. I hope everybody is doing great. I just wanted to come on here to talk to you guys today about a new case that has gone viral. Pretty much everyone is talking about this case online, and it is absolutely crazy. So I wanted to come and talk to my opinionators and my litigators to get your opinion, because I'm curious of what you guys think about this story. What is your opinion on it? And that's why we're here, right? To get to the bottom of this tragedy. One good news I can say is, at least this time, we're not talking about someone who has passed away. This woman, she's still alive, thank God. So that's the best news that we can even get out the way first. But let's get into this, y'all. I want to hear your opinion. So please give your opinions in the chat as we go through this story. So who is this lady on the screen today that we're going to talk about? This woman is 39 years old. Her name is Erica McGriff, and she lives in Jacksonville, Florida. She is a mother. I believe she's a single mother, but I don't know, y'all. Let me get into the facts. She basically has a history of pretty much a poor driving record. So she has had traffic violations in the past, which can explain possibly her behavior in this story that we're about to get into. But what basically happened was this woman, she went to go drop her kids off at school. And per usual, she, did a traffic violation. She parks in a no parking zone. She's not supposed to be parking there. So an officer approaches her. And this officer's name is Officer Randy Holton in Jacksonville, Florida. He basically tells her, hey, ma'am, you're not supposed to be parking there. You need to, go back to your car. We need to talk. So this woman, she basically lies to the officer. She tells the officer, hey, that's not my car. I wasn't driving that car. The person that was driving the vehicle has left, and that person's at the school. I'm just here dropping off my child. But that was not the accurate information. Basically, what happened is the officer witnessed the whole thing. He saw her park in the no parking zone, and he approached her, told her, hey, ma'am, you need to go back to your car for a traffic violation. She does not obey the officer. She just keeps walking with her daughter. Her daughter is there. Her daughter is seeing this whole transaction unfold. So the investigation revealed that this officer, Randy, investigation. Yeah, officer. So he basically saw the 39-year-old Erica McGriff parking her vehicle in the nearby roadway, and she left the car running. It was unattended, and she attempted to walk to the parent pickup line to go get her child. So the officer attempted to intervene, and as he was serving as the school guardian for the day, he observed her parking in this area and leaving her car with the engine on, and he advised her of the violation, and she became mouthy. Basically, she said it wasn't her. That was the person who drove the car left, and she was just going to get her child. Then the officer grabbed her arm, and he walked her forcefully back to the car, and she said, basically, don't put your hands on me. So the officer attempted to use a soft hand twist technique to gain control of her. So what he did was he took her arm and he folded it backwards and basically pushed it up towards her shoulder. And she began to feel some form of pain. And she kind of told him, hey, ow, you're hurting me. And that's when the whole thing kind of went haywire. So the officers on his position, he's saying he used the soft hand wrist technique to gain control of Miss McGriff. She pulled away and began struggling with a lone police officer as he attempted to escort her to his nearby patrol car. Based on her statement, she seemed to have pulled away because she said she was feeling pain. She was trying to tell him that the way he had her arm, it was hurting her. McGriff was assisted to the ground. He forced her to the ground, right? He didn't assist her to the ground. He body slammed her on the pavement, grabbed her by the hair, put her in a headlock. And this is when this violent struggle ensued. And that's when she basically started fighting him back. After repeated attempt at takedowns and pressure holds, that was when McGriff was placed into custody and she was placed in the rear view of the car. 59-year-old shouter Anita Gibson and 39-year-old Jasmine Jefferson were being involved, and they were basically intervening, and they failed to comply with the officers' request for them to not intervene. And so they were charged under a new law called the HALO law. So Jacksonville officers subsequently tracked down these other individuals, Gibson and Jefferson, and they basically were being arrested for violating the Florida's new HALO law. It's the statute 843.31. It's a new law that permits individuals to give emergency first responders, police, EMS, and corrections and fire 25 feet of space to do their job. And so, like, if anybody steps within that 25 feet area, then if an officer tells them to move back, they can be arrested and be charged with a misdemeanor and face 60 days in jail. And this new HALO law is actually really problematic because what it basically is going to prevent is witnesses who are bystanders, having the ability to videotape any violent interactions from officers. And I think that really was the underlying intent to create this HALO law, to prevent bystanders from videotaping the evidence of these aggressive police conduct. So that there's problems with that statute in and of itself. But basically now we have 2 other bystanders who have been arrested for misdemeanors and for failing to back after warnings that they would be arrested. So now they're also being charged with. I think that law is very unfairly written, and in my opinion, I think it's unconstitutional in my opinion. Now McGriff, she's facing felony charges of battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer with violence, and operating a motor vehicle while having a driver's license that is revoked as a habitual traffic offender. So that's probably why she was trying to avoid the officers, because she already had a suspended driver's license and she wasn't supposed to be driving legal at all because she was violating the law by driving. So the fact that she started to drive there, she broke the law, and then she began to ignore the officer's commands. McGriff also received multiple traffic infractions and citations, and basically she is held at the Duval County Jail. So that is the whole underlying facts. We're going to get into the videos. I'm curious what you guys think once you see the videos, but let's show you the pictures of the people involved. So this is the woman that was resisting the arrest of the officers and was brutally beaten by the officers. This woman was intervening when she saw the incident and was warned under the HALO law. This woman also was charged for violating the HALO law. And this is one of the screenshots of what happened, this woman being assaulted as well as fighting the officer. But what people are concerned about is the excessive use of force that he put on the woman. Like, some people have a strong opposition to how the force was exerted onto her. So let's take a look at the videos. Here is a clip of the video here that we will watch together. And let's
You got me fucked up! You gonna punch me? You gonna hit me? You gonna hit me? You hating me!
You went too far. You got it, bro. That's the devil, okay? That's the devil. That police officer is the devil. Okay? That's the devil.
You is wrong! You is wrong! You got me fucked up! You gonna punch me?
So yes, I can acknowledge here that the woman was, in fact, verbally, at this point, verbally being aggressive in her tone, and she was resisting. However, in my opinion, what I would say is the way that this officer is handling her is I believe, excessive. What he should have done in this situation is he should have immediately got the handcuffs on her. However, as you can see here in this still shot, he takes her arm, he twists her arm in a very unusual way. He takes the actual arms where her fingers are, and he starts to bend it up towards her shoulder. And this is all done at a school. There's children around. Her daughter her other kids are all watching her mother be physically attacked by this officer. And so the first incident happens where, yes, she did resist the officer. But the first issue I have with this first encounter is the level of force that he exerted on her initially. Yes, he is the only officer there, but the issue that I have with him is the way he first twists her arm. And then the second issue that I have is as she's telling him her arm is painful, what he should have done is just put the handcuffs on her, move her arm from the uncomfortable situation, and then handcuffed her. However, he just continued to, in my opinion, twist her arm up in an awkward way, in an unnatural way that left her feeling uncomfortable, left her feeling in pain, which is why she began to move around to try to get away from the uncomfortable state. Then, as you can see in this video, he begins to now body slam this woman. And it doesn't look like something consistent with what officers are trained to do, the way in which he did make her go to the ground. He never made a command for her to go lay down on the ground. He just physically starts throwing her to the ground as if she's a WWF wrestler, as you can see. And initially, officers are trained to de-escalate first, and he never tried to de-escalate this situation at all. And this is usually contrary to how officers treat individuals of other ethnicities, such as Caucasian or white European individuals. If this was, for example, a Caucasian woman, he would have tried to de-escalate, tried to calm the woman down first. And whereas what we see with African-American individuals or people of the darker complexion, officers immediately escalate these type of encounters to a violent, forceful way. And the way that he flopped this woman around, pulling her hair, is inconsistent with his training, in my opinion. And it looks as though he's treating her like an animal, and he's doing this all at an elementary school in front of children and her own children watching this situation. So let's keep playing this one more time, and then I'll go into a video before this whole incident to try to analyze that portion of it. So see, look, you can see here. Let's see here. Look how he has her arm. He takes her arm and he twists her arm all the way in the upward. That could be a very painful position. He's already exerting pain on this woman. It seems like he's enjoying torturing this woman in the way that he has her. To me, I don't think this position was necessary, because at this point you can see that she's standing still. She may be verbally being aggressive, but physically she's not fighting him at this time. She's not being violent to him. So the way he has her arm in this position, in my opinion, is unjustified. What he should have done is just merely put the handcuffs on her, and this would have relieved the whole situation. He could have immediately handcuffed her and said, hey, you're being detained because you have not cooperated with me. I'm going to detain you at this time and read you your Miranda rights, and then I'm going to proceed to ask you, questions about, your vehicle, and then we're going to go to the police station for resisting arrest. But this point right here, I just feel like the position where he has her right now is not necessary. She's not fighting him at this point. She's merely standing still. And this is what I say in the issue, what I see with encounters with officers and that it relates to African-American individuals, is they are very quick to escalate encounters with Black individuals in a violent manner and treat them as if they are animals. They never take the approach of de-escalating like they would do to a Caucasian individual who may be exerting the same force and failure to comply with the officer's instructions, which is why a lot of African Americans do unfortunately resist arrest, because they are preconceived and have been conditioned to see what they see on the news and social media of officers exerting unnecessary force onto Black individuals or minorities when they don't take any precautions to try to de-escalate the situation. They're very quick to either shoot, unalive, or brutally beat an African-American person, whereas if it is a Caucasian person, you will notice they will take every step to be to make sure they can de-escalate or try to arrest the person in a civilized way. So you don't see in this case where this man is even trying to do that at all. So see, she's not even resisting at this point. She's just verbally being aggressive, which is not really necessarily a crime. And I think this is something that civilians fail to understand. If a person is being stopped by an officer and they're verbally, saying obscenities, calling the officer's name, none of that is a crime. You can curse out an officer, you can say what you want verbally. When it becomes physical and you start to physically fight the officer, that's when it escalates into a crime. So the fact that she's merely verbally saying stuff to him does not mean it's a crime. It doesn't mean she's resisting arrest or she's resisting the officer. So at this point, there was no need for him to use this force on her as he's doing with her arm. So let's proceed with the video now. And as you can so you can hear her saying, "You're hurting me out." This time you see she's not fighting this officer. It doesn't make sense why he is now pulling her arm even more, twisting it even further so that he can now body slam her to the ground. None of this is necessary at all. He's physically torturing this woman and causing severe pain to her body, which is, you can see her screaming in pain, and he's continuing to further twist her arm, which is not necessary, which has caused her to have a natural reaction to try to get out of the uncomfortable situation. Now, as you see there, he took her arm, he twisted her all the way around and body slammed her to the ground. None of this was necessary at all. This officer had no legal justification to escalate a situation where he first has her under his control. He physically had her in a position where she could not move. Yet he escalated that situation by twisting her arm even further, then body slamming her to the ground. None of this is showing his justification for escalating the situation. Now, as you can see, she was not fighting him. She's still, even though she has not fought him at all. He proceeds to take his arm and now begin to put her in a headlock. He's doing all this force. You do not see at any point in this time where she's fighting him. Now he body slammed her a second time with his arm under her neck. None of this is necessary. Now you can see for the first time she begins to move. She gets up and now she's beginning to resist. So this is the part where people are saying, well, she started to fight him. At this point in her mind, she felt she was in danger by an officer who had attacked her, who had body slammed her twice, grabbed her by the neck, body slammed her. At this point, she felt in danger for her life. So in my humble opinion, and I want to hear your perspective, at this point in the video, it's as if she was fighting him to get him off of her because she felt like she was in a physical danger of an officer who was literally brutally body slamming her twice and putting her in a headlock for no justifiable reason at all. Now you see he proceeds to punch her. At this point, she has not done anything yet. She just tried to get away from him. Now he grabs her by the head, body slams her.
You got it, Cat. That's the devil, Cat.
Proceeds to pull her and choke her out. I don't think any level of this was necessary at all. At all. There doesn't seem to be any reason for why this officer is doing all this, and in front of kids at an elementary school, mind you.
Okay? That's the devil. Police officer is the devil. Okay?
And as you can see, not once do you see this woman moving. Her body is not moving. She's still. So why is he continuing taking his knee, pressing it on her head? He's still be using excessive force for no justifiable reason. He has her, look, he has her in a headlock. He's choking her out as people are watching this. And this woman still has yet to move yet. She hasn't moved. She hasn't hit him. She has not done nothing physically to justify this officer using this high level of deadly force on this woman who is unarmed. So that is the first video. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. In my opinion, I think that was unnecessary. The woman was not fighting him. She may have been verbally aggressive, but she wasn't physically aggressive at that point. Now, this is another clip where you can see the initial contact here with the woman in front of her child who was watching this at the elementary school. So the person in the background you hear is crying is her child. So her child walks back with her mother as her mother's being arrested. And she's seeing all this encounter.
You got me fucked up! You gonna punch me? You gonna hit me? You gonna hit me? You gonna hit me?
Again, why did he have to twist her arm like that? This man was literally intentionally trying to physically torture this woman. As you've seen right there, the twisting of her arm up her shoulder was not necessary. If he felt a danger or if he felt like she was not going to comply, all he had to do was take both of her arms behind her back and handcuff her. But you can see already he's being the one that's initiating the aggression. Hi, Betty. Hi, welcome, love. He's already initiating aggression and escalating this situation that is initially starting out as non-physically violent to now progressing it to an excessive level of force. And as you can see how he has her arm, it's in a very unnatural position that could cause any person physical pain. Oops, sorry, guys. Let's see if we can get back to that video. I want to go back. Okay, so here, let's see if we can find it again. Here it is right here. So here, like I said, this is kids walking up to her children seeing this. Children are watching their mother.
You got me fucked up! You gonna punch me?
So the only level of force she just did was she kind of moved her arm back, and then she kind of said, "You got me effed up." But again, the words alone is not a justifiable reason for an officer to use force. It has to be physical resistance. So the physical part is where she's kind of like, she pushed her arm back a little, but he could have easily gotten control of that by just putting handcuffs on her. So for him to progress to twisting her arm and all this was just not justified. And you can see little kids walking by. The children are all watching this. People are watching this. This was unnecessary. But the thing is, what I'm noticing is a lot of officers treat African Americans like animals. Like they don't have any humanity for an African American. Whereas if this was like a Caucasian woman and she was in the same situation, he would have tried to talk to her. He would have tried to de-escalate, try to use other tactics and to use the force that he used on this woman, because he doesn't see her as a human, and instead he sees her as less than an animal. Did you see that? How he jerked her arm and then began to proceed to push it up even more in an unnatural way. This officer is just enjoying inciting torture, physical agony onto this woman. It's not about trying to retain her and get control. It's about, at this point, his intention is now just to physically torture her, because he doesn't, basically this officer and a lot of officers, what I notice about them is they're very arrogant. And when they feel that you are verbally assaulting them, they get in their emotions instead of trying to have self-control. They get offended by the words that are exerted against them. And so instead of controlling those emotions, a lot of these officers will react and retaliate and violent toward the African-American individual. Let's keep going to watch the rest of this video and analyze it. And I want to hear your take on this video. So you see he pushed her arm and twisted it up even more. Right there. Now he took this woman at this point. Now you can notice this woman has not moved at all. She hasn't fought him at this point anymore. The only first part she fought him was when she kind of pushed her arm back. But from then on, she has not moved. So he took her elbow and he pushed and shoved it up even more and twisted her arm even more. This position that he has her in can cause physical pain to that woman. So a natural reaction, it doesn't matter what ethnicity she is, a natural reaction for a person whose arm is twisted in that manner, and then he took her elbow to force it even more in an awkward position, they would feel physical pain and they would try in a way to get out of that physical position because it's a painful situation. This right here was not necessary. Why did he have to continue to twist her arm up like that when he has control already? The woman's not moving. She's verbally talking to him, but she's not moving. So verbal words does not justify the officer elevating even more force on this woman. Now you have the little girl that's her mom. She's watching her mom be tortured like this.
You got somebody else? No, please.
Their kids are begging the officer to please stop hurting their mother because they're seeing their mom in pain. So you can see this woman hasn't moved yet. The reason why she's bending down is because he twisted her arm even more. He continues to push her arm up. So naturally in that position, any wrestler can tell you that would naturally cause the body to twist down because the arm is being shoved so twisted up so high toward her shoulder area in the backwards. It causes severe agony and pain. And the arm cannot naturally twist that high up. So her body will naturally bend down because of the way he has her arm. She hasn't done anything to fight him. She's not swinging at him. She's not moving her body. She's only moving her body because he's naturally continuing to push that right arm up towards her shoulder area, which is not a natural position to put the human body or anyone's ligaments in a position of that. And now she's in physical pain. So she's screaming out. She's telling him, hey, you're hurting my arm. And he continues to do it. And the question is, why though? She hasn't done anything to him. She's not armed with any weapons. She's physically smaller than this officer. He can physically retain her simply by taking her other arm and putting them in handcuffs. There's no reason for him to do this. So she begins to cry and say, you're hurting me. And he continues to hurt her. He continues to have that right arm and continue to push it more up. He's enjoying inflicting this pain on this woman. It's as if this demon has taken control of him and he's getting gratification from seeing this woman scream out in pain. Then he twists her and body slams her on the ground. She has not fought him. So again, the question is, why did he need to do that? What was his justification to twist her all the way down and body slam her on the ground? What was the reasoning? She hadn't done anything. She hadn't fought him. She hasn't swung on him. She hasn't done anything but scream out and tell him that he was hurting her arm. This officer is using excessive force. He's not complying even with the policy guidelines for retaining someone in a situation, especially when the person is not physically fighting him. Then he grabs her by the neck and body slams her again. And as you can see, when he grabbed her by the neck and he body slammed her, she again was not moving. She was not swinging on him. She was not fighting him. She was laid still, and he still chose to grab her by the neck and body slam her a second time. There's no reason or justification to continue to grab someone by the neck, a civilian by the neck, body slam them 2 times when this woman has laying still. She's just screaming because she's hurting. And that does not justify physical resistance by screaming in pain. The question is, what did he want her to do? Why was he continually body slamming her? What is his reasoning for body slamming her when he has physical control over this woman already? Why hasn't he taken any steps to handcuff her? And that would have relieved all of his danger. He has no danger. There's no justification for the way he's treating her. Now, at this point, she does move her arm because now she feels like she's in danger. He takes her again in a headlock. This officer is getting gratification from exerting pain on this woman. And in my opinion, I feel as though in his mind, he has a very sociopathic mentality of it, loving the exerting gratification of violence upon the, Black and brown individuals, because he does not see them as humans. He sees them as animals to control. He's still holding her in a neck hold, and she's only being moved by his physical force. Now that part, she does start to fight him. People will say, okay, she resisted at this point. Why is she swinging on him? But when an officer has violated his conduct and the methods of standards he was trained in and how he's supposed to, deal with civilians or someone he thinks he can't control, then the civilian starts to think, I'm not in a safe situation. This officer is not safe. He is going to harm me. So this woman is having a fight or flight reaction. She has been body slammed twice by this officer for no justifiable reason. So now she's afraid for her life. So she is in her mind not thinking this is an officer. She's thinking, I need to get away from this person who is trying to murder me, who's trying to physically harm me.
You went too far.
You got it, Cat. That's the devil, Cat. Okay? That's the devil. That police officer is the devil. Okay?
You can just see the way he's just like, he put his arm on her neck. He's putting his knee on her head. He has not once, during this entire encounter, he has not once took a chance to just handcuff her. That's all he had to do. I haven't seen him pull out any handcuffs. I haven't seen him try any method to keep her subdued. He's just fighting this woman like it's a WWF wrestling ring.
That's the devil.
Hey, y'all, I gotta move this line.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
And now you can see all of the kids, you can see the staff, you can see civilians, bystanders getting uncomfortable with this because they can see this is not right the way he's handling her, especially when he's not trying to arrest her. He's just basically fighting this woman for some unknown reason. You heard somebody say, get the F off that lady, because this is like, why are you doing this? It's not necessary.
Like a man.
You can hear people saying you're fighting her like a man. And that is exactly what a lot of some of the cops treat African-American individuals like, especially even the women. They see them as some type of supernatural man or whatever that has a strength of a man. So they handle Black women like men because they think Black women have some type of supernatural strength. And so they feel it's justified to exert this type of physical aggression upon a woman.
You is wrong. You is wrong.
So he still had her in that chokehold the whole time. Luckily, this woman survived. That is the one good news that we do have from the tragedy, is that luckily she survived. But now she is facing felony charges. several felony charges. It's sad because now the kids are not going to have a mom because she's going to be going to jail for God knows how long now because of this incident, when I believe this really was the officer's fault in how he handled it. He escalated this unnecessarily to a violent situation by how he handled her initially with no justified reason for the first initial part as he continued to torture her by twisting her arm up, body slamming her twice, putting her in a chokehold. None of that initial part did she try to resist at all. So there was no reason for him to fight her that way. As you can see, the people there that was trying to like help her and trying to get the officer off of her, now they are facing a misdemeanor under the new HALO Act that Florida has passed, which I believe it's a method and a strategy for officers to be able to exert these forces without any a civilian having the ability to record this illegal action. It's their way of trying to combat civilians in their abilities to videotape unjustifiable physical force like this. This type of reaction, the way he handled that woman, just did not seem to justify the high level of force that he exerted on her. And because of the very violent way he handled her, it caused a natural reaction of fight or flight, which did cause her to start thinking she's in danger and she needs to fight this man for the last dear of her life. I don't think she really was trying to resist him until he started to physically continue to cause physical pain to her. And no matter how much she cried out, he began to increase the force on her every time she cried in pain. He began to increase and elevate the force onto this woman like she was an animal. So let's read this article. It says an encounter outside a charter school of Tuesday escalated into a violent confrontation, leading to felony charges for a Jacksonville woman and the first ever arrest by the Jacksonville Sheriff Office under Florida's controversial new HALO law. And Florida has a lot of questionable laws over there that I find to be very concerning and violating a lot of constitutional rights. And they've been tending to get away with a lot of the stuff over there, but let's keep going. Sheriff T.K. Waters announced the arrest and stating that the incident involving Officer Randy Holton and 39-year-old Erica McGriff was fully documented on body cameras and widely circulated on bystander cell phone video. The incident begins over a parked car. The encounter began outside the IDA charter school when Officer Holton, serving under the Safe Schools program, approached McGriff after her car, according to Sheriff Waters. McGriff, a habitual traffic offender with a revoked license, had left her vehicle running in an intersection. When approached, McGriff denied the car was hers and walked away. The body camera footage shows a confrontational exchange where Holton attempts to direct her toward her car, eventually gripping her arm and twist wrist to take her toward his patrol SUV. McGriff repeatedly tells Holton not to grab her and to stop embarrassing her daughter, who was present. Now, again, like I said, the word she said wasn't just. This is going to be the news conference that we're going to watch after this. I want to see if you guys can even see this. Yeah, so there's going to be a news conference I'm going to show you after this. But before we watch that news conference, we're going to continue to read this article. The violent scuffle and felony charges. So as Holton attempted to handcuff McGriff, she began yelling and resisting. After a warning, Holton is seen in the video roughly pulling her to the wet street. The struggle intensified, with a bystander's video capturing Holton briefly applying a chokehold and McGriff yelling that she couldn't breathe, and which incited the growing crowd. But again, during this time, the fact that she's verbally stating something does not justify that's not resisting arrest. You have freedom of speech. You could say whatever you want as long as you're not using any physical resistance. And during that initial encounter, when he kept twisting her arm, he body slammed her, then chokehold her. All that time, she never physically resisted at all. She just was verbally saying how much in pain she was in. So it doesn't justify what he did. He just kept elevating it to a higher level of violence without trying to just merely just handcuff her. That's all he had to do is take both arms, put her in handcuff, and it would have been all resolved. He didn't even want to do that. He just wanted to continue to fight this woman like a man. McGriff regained her footing and swung at Holton, who swung back. She ended up on the ground again, where Holton was seen grabbing her by the hair. According to Waters, McGriff violently resisted Officer Holton, and eventually punched him repeatedly and bit him with such force that she left a bite impression on his forearm. This was not evidence at all in the video. I think this is all right here a lie. Because if you can see the video, she wasn't able to land any punches based on the video we saw. She was not able to get his arm. She wasn't able to do any of that stuff. He had her subdued. He could have just basically handcuffed her. She did try to swing on him after she had got up, but she didn't seem to land anything. He landed 2 punches in her face, but she wasn't able to get a punch based on what we saw in the video. McGriff was ultimately arrested and faces multiple third-degree felony charges, each punishable by up to 5 years in state prison: battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer with violence, operating a vehicle with a revoked license. And this is so sad how this officer, in my opinion, elevated this to a violent situation, which eventually led the woman to start to resist after she was physically battered 3 times, and tortured on the ground like that, the way he was treating her and choking her out. And now she's going to have to face prison time for what he did. I just think that's so sad. And this is how flawed our country's laws are, and how there's a lot of systematic discrimination that goes on in the laws and how it's applied to certain individuals. It's just very sad. But anyways, bystanders arrested under the new HALO law. As the confrontation unfolded, Holton and McGriff became surrounded by bystanders, some of whom were yelling obscenities. Sheriff Waters confirmed that at least 2 of these individuals were arrested for violating the new HALO law, making JSO's first application of the statute. The Florida HALO law, which took effect on January 1st, 2025, creates a 25-foot safety zone around first responders actively performing their duties. The law makes it a second-degree misdemeanor, punishable up to 60 days in jail or a fine. To intentionally enter this 25-foot buffer after receiving a verbal warning to step back. The purpose of the law is to protect first responders from interference, threats, or harassment. Now, to me, I think that law is BS. I think it's a soft way of trying to prevent bystanders from videotaping any unjustifiable physical force exerted onto bystanders. That's exactly what I think it is. A lot of these officers want to get away with the force they're using on civilians, and they don't want any witnesses to be able to capture their unlawful conduct. And that's what I just think that law is. I just don't think the law is constitutional. Waters was empathetic about the JSO's position. If you crowd and harass our officers or any first responder after a verbal warning, you will be arrested. The sheriff acknowledged that while the law aims to improve first responder safety, critics have raised concerns that it could be used to suppress lawful observation and recording of police activities, potentially infringing on First Amendment rights, which is my opinion about the law. And like I said, I feel like Florida has a lot of crazy type of unjustified, in my opinion, unconstitutional laws that they've been able to just get away with. I don't know why anyone has actually challenged those laws, but that's another day for another discussion. Now let's look at the actual sheriff has done a news conference that has actually enraged a lot of citizens even further, because he basically just defends his officer. I don't know how this Jacksonville sheriff here, the actual leader of the law enforcement in this county, I don't understand how he can actually rationally say what his officer did was right. I can't wrap my head around him watching that video and not assessing it for what it was. Like, it doesn't even, what he's saying verbally in this news conference doesn't line up to me what I saw in that video. I do acknowledge that verbally this woman was not, a friendly person on the street, and she was kind of like not wanting to comply, but she didn't physically fight this man initially. She just was talking about how much pain she was in. So I don't get how this supervisor here is claiming up and down his his staff officer was compliant with officers' procedures. I feel like there's a lot of bias in this investigation that they did. And I feel like someone outside of this particular county needs to be the one, the U.S. attorney or someone else needs to be the one to analyze it, because I just don't think their particular department is unbiased. I think they're biased in their interpretation. But let's see what he had to say.
Thank you for being here today. Today I announced that Anita Gibson has been arrested, and another arrest is forthcoming under Florida's HALO law, Florida Statute Section 843.31, which became effective on January 1st of this year. This law creates a 25-foot buffer around first responders, prohibiting individuals from approaching within this area or harassing a first responder while conducting their official duty after a verbal warning. The Florida legislature enacted this statute to protect first responders from threats and interference so that these public servants can focus on their important duties. This arrest stems from a criminal incident that occurred on the afternoon of Tuesday, October 7th, outside of the IDEA Charter School located in the 1800 block of Bassett Road. Erica McGriff, a habitual traffic offender with revoked Florida driving privileges and a parent of an IDEA student, illegally parked her car in an intersection and left it running and unattended. Officer Holton, a JSO officer working as part of the Safe Schools program, attempted to lawfully discuss the matter with McGriff. She escalated the verbal conversation to physical violence. She violently resisted Officer Holton and eventually punched him repeatedly and bit him with such force that she left a bite impression on his forearm. Gibson and another woman pending arrest were originally spectators. Ultimately, however, they violated Florida law themselves by harassing Officer Holton and failing to provide him with a 25-foot area to safely detain McGriff, and after he gave them verbal warning to get back. They did not comply. Because Officer Holton was outfitted with a body-worn camera, his interactions with McGriff, Gibson, and others on scene were recorded. So I'll share that footage with you now. And additionally, a spectator on scene recorded part of the incident on a cell phone. Some of that cell phone footage has been posted on social media platforms. I will play that cell phone video after the body-worn camera footage is shown.
What are you doing? I need your license. I need your license. That's your car. I just want to get out of the car. Okay. I will listen, you can get a ticket or you can keep running straight to the jail. I'm gonna give you one chance. You create the drama. I don't want any drama. I want to go home and I want to. I just came to pick up my child. Okay. I just came to pick up my child. That's all. Please don't grab me. Please don't grab me. Don't grab me. Sir, let me go. You hurting my baby. No, I'm going back to my car. Let me. Please don't do this in front of my child. Sir, take me to my car. I will. You don't have to curse me. I will. Man, don't. Please don't. You don't have to. You got me. Stop. Come on, punch me. You're not hitting me. You're not
To me, this was just so sad, like the way he treated her. Like, I get that she was like loud and saying, hey, you're going to hit me, and kind of not verbally being happy about being arrested. But who would be when you're trying to get your child to school, you're a single parent, and you feel like you're being heckled by the officers? In my opinion, she was wrong for lying to the officers, telling the officers that wasn't her car when it was, and then not going just to walk back with the officers and complying. I get that. But the way he handled her after that was not necessary. She's screaming in pain. He's twisting her arm for no apparent reason. Like, he's not trying to necessarily gain control because he already has control of her. But he's just physically torturing her, like in a way of forcing this woman to react the way she did. It's like he almost manufactured the resistance that he wanted to get from her so that he could arrest her for some other crime. It's actually quite sad watching the video to see that. It's just so painful to watch this. I should have warned you guys before playing this video. I didn't know they were going to play this again. But just seeing how sad it is. This man is choking her out, and he has no sense of humanity. I mean, I thought that officers are supposed to be the community protectors. They're supposed to be servants of the community. This officer, to me, doesn't come off as a servant of the community. It comes off as he is a danger to the citizens here. Like, to treat someone like that, I mean, yes, she was screaming and stuff, but it didn't, to me, justify this high level of force he's using on a woman who's not even physically fighting him at this point in the body camera. It's so sad because you can hear the community leaders saying to get off of her, and you can see this guy right here bending down to try to help her. It's so sad they're intervening because they could see the way she's being handled is just not necessary. Like, he should have been handcuffed her. Had he handcuffed her the very first time, he was enjoying twisting her arm all the way back and twisting her to the point where he threw her to the ground. Like, if he would have already handcuffed her from the beginning, we would have never got to this level. This officer is the one that elevated this to this level of force. And I know it's always told that people say that, well, if the person didn't resist, they wouldn't be going through this. But when you see stuff like this displayed on the news almost regularly, where you're seeing officers be so violent towards African Americans or using this unnecessary aggressive force, chokeholds, different stuff like that, it's preconditions in African Americans' minds that they're in danger when they see an officer. It's almost like that physically causes severe PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, when they see an officer or encounter an officer, because they already automatically think, oh no, my life is in danger. I may die because this officer stopped me. I'm scared. They're initially scared. And so they react this way as if like their life is in danger. And in this situation, I don't even think this level of force was necessary. It just wasn't. And you can tell because everybody in the community here is so concerned for this woman. They're trying to help her. They're trying to, intervene. And you don't normally see it where you got crowds actually coming up trying to get into the actual situation. Like that guy, he bent down to try to help her, try to get her head up to help her breathe. This is like to the point where you could see actual bystanders concerned for this woman's life. And I feel like it was the bystanders that saved her, because had they not intervened, maybe he would have kept continuing to use force on her, which could have led to her death.
She punched me and she bit me.
The officer uses the excuse, oh, she punched me and she bit me. But he was the one that caused her to react that way. Because if you watch the video with me, you could see during the initial portion of this, she was not physically fighting him at all. She was standing still. Her body was resting on the car. And yet he continued to twist her arm more and more and more until she began to naturally bend down from the forceful twisting. And then he then forcefully threw her body, slammed her to the ground, then began to choke her for no reason. So naturally she did react and she did start to fight him, but it was after he at first exerted all the excessive force on her, which caused her to naturally react that way. You can see the civilians so concerned. They're asking, can she sit up? Does she need water? Stuff like that, because they're all worried they're the ones I feel saved this woman's life. But for the staff and the people there intervening, he would have killed that woman.
She's playing. Put her on the floor. Put her on the floor. You got 25 feet. Get away from me, or you going with it.
And the question here is, why didn't he handcuff her in the first place? Why did he elevate this to a full-fledged wrestling match when he could have just done this from the beginning? He had her at a still position, resting on that car with her hand twisted all the way up her back. He could have took her other arm at that beginning of the stage and just handcuffed her. This officer wanted this encounter. He is the one that created this situation, which ultimately led to her reacting the way she did, because he wasn't acting like a professional. And now this woman is going to face 5 years or more in jail. I agree with you, Christina SoFly, definitely. Some of these officers that are in these positions, they use their positions to exert force on particular individuals, and they know they can get away with it, and they know they're going to be covered by the badge. They know that their superiors are going to defend them. And we're sadly in a climate right now where this woman is not going to get justice at all. It's just not going to happen because of the president we have, the conditions we're in right now. It's just not favored in her it's not favored in her side. It's sad. It's very sad.
Get in the car. Get in the car.
Now you gonna kick me too,
Get in the car and kick me.
Now, what I don't like is how this particular police department is only doing clips. In this particular clip here, they're seeing where she starts to fight him, but they leave out the whole entire beginning of this where she was standing still at the car and the officer twisted her arm so far up her back, her body naturally bent down because she was in severe pain. Then he body slams her, then choke holds her, body slams her again, and began to choke her out. And that's when she got up to try to fight him. Because at that point, she felt like her life was in danger. She only fought him after he brutally was beating the woman or choking the woman, body slamming her like she was some wrestle WWF wrestling champion or something. A woman was doing this to. This is so sad. Now you can see that the man with the umbrella who's bending down, that is one of the school staff members. He is so disturbed by seeing this woman being choked out. He starts, his natural human inclination is to try to step in to help her and to try to get this officer off of her, because it's like, you didn't need to do all this. There was no necessity to do all this when she wasn't at first fighting him at first. And if you just look at this video, you could see this woman is only being moved by the officer while he's choking her and moving her body around. She's not actually physically resisting him. She's just screaming in pain, and he's continuing to twist her arm around. So her body is naturally moving as his arm is moving her body with force around. And this man is so disturbed by seeing this woman being like this. He's trying to tell the officer, look, she can't breathe. He's trying to move the officer's arm from off of her neck to try to help her breathe, because he has a natural person. He can't handle seeing this woman be treated this way. Like, you have to ask yourself, like, what was the necessity for him to use this type of force when she's not physically moving at this point? He already has control of her. All he had to do was move his arm and then lay her down and put handcuffs on her. The answer is he never wanted to really arrest her or get her under control. He enjoyed using violence on her because he was upset because she did not initially comply with him. He was upset because she yelled at him. He was upset because she, asked him why was he being so aggressive. A lot of these officers are very egotistical, and I know that because I used to work with officers when I worked as a criminal prosecutor. I used to work with officers personally, and I would review the cases that they sent to our district attorney's office. And a lot of them would want civilians arrested for merely calling them a pig or name calling. And I would have to tell them, hey, this is not a crime. There's no statute on the books that say if a civilian calls you a pig or calls you a name you don't like, that we have to file a charge against them. That's their free speech. If they want to call you names, if they want to yell and curse at you, that's not a crime. But a lot of these officers, they're so arrogant, and they get offended if they get called names or if someone curses at them. They start getting angry in their feelings, and now they use the power that they have to retaliate by using excessive force, because they know that they're covered by the law. They can lie and they can make up anything. That's why they're creating more and more laws to prevent civilians from recording them, so that they can get away with this excessive force. And especially they like to exert it on African Americans and Black and brown people, because they don't see Black and brown people as human beings that deserve any dignity. They see them as animals. And this dates back to the prehistoric days when law enforcement was first established. Initially, law enforcement was first established to keep control of slaves back in our history. And that initial reasoning for why law enforcement was initially established to regulate and control slaves has been the way officers have engaged with the Black community until today. They are very excessive. They use so much substantial force. They are quick to shoot unalive African Americans, whereas if a Caucasian person is in the same encounter, or if a Caucasian person resists the officers, the officers are skilled at de-escalating the situation, and they will do every other means but unalive the white person if that person resists. But when it comes to a Black person, the first reaction is to either use physical violence on them, to choke them, or unalive them through excessive shooting, because they don't see and perceive African Americans, even women who are Black or brown, as human beings. So their natural instinct is to react that way under the protection of the law, because they know they will get away with it because there's no accountability. And they're creating more and more laws, like the HALO law that is established in Florida, to prevent civilians and bystanders from intervening if they see that the officers are using excessive force, or to try to videotape this excessive type of force. And you can see here, this civilian, he's so disturbed by this, what he's seeing, because he can see that the way this officer is treating this woman is just over the top, for like, it's not justified. The reason why the situation and turned into a resisting arrest situation was because of the officer himself and how he handled her from the beginning. He was the one that was violently tossing her around like she was a rag doll, choking her out, putting his knee on her head, all these different actions, which led her to react. That was why she retaliated, to try to fight and get away from him, because she thought this man was going to kill her. And she couldn't understand why he kept using this force when she wasn't physically resisting.
So as a result of her...
And I just want to applaud that staff who came in to try to help her. That to me was just the first time I seen an actual citizen come into a situation like that to try to help the woman. Like, that was to me such a sign of humanity. I don't feel like if that man had not intervened, I don't feel like we would be here under circumstances where she's still alive. Because he helped her, he turned her body over, he tried to get the officer to reason with the officer to stop using all this unnecessary force. And the fact that this man's manager is over here defending him is disgusting.
Actions on Tuesday afternoon, Erica McGriff was arrested for battery on a law enforcement officer, resisting an officer with violence, and operating a motor vehicle while having a driver's license that is revoked as a habitual traffic offender, which is probably what led to her refusing to give some of those things over in the very beginning. These charges are all third-degree felonies, each punishable by up to 5 years in Florida State Prison. Additionally, McGriff was cited for multiple traffic violations. So what's today's takeaway? If you violently resist our officers, if you punch them, if you bite them, you will be arrested. If you crowd and harass our officers or any first responder after a verbal warning, you will be arrested. JSO will always hold accountable those who violate the law. But this entire episode reaches beyond even law violations. It speaks to the breakdown of civil society that some in our community not only quietly accept, but actively promote. So beyond breaking the law, these adults committed these acts in front of vulnerable and impressionable school children. These adults modeled and normalized for school-age children not only breaking the law, but also lying to the police, violently resisting the police, punching police officers, biting the police officer, and harassing a police officer, and encumbering a police officer. Officer Holton was simply doing his job. Disappointingly, this negative modeling had direct consequences.
And if you have been here with me at the beginning, this particular sheriff officer is completely mischaracterizing the facts. If you watch the beginning with me, and you might have to go back to the beginning of the live, this woman did not start punching or biting the officer until the officer initiated violence onto the woman. He was the one twisting her arm around like a pretzel. He began to push her, bend her down, body slam her on a wet pavement, take her, chokehold her. And after those 3 incidents by the officers using his violence for no reason, that is when she began to react. That is when she bit him. That is when she tried to get away from his chokehold and punched him. But in the video, you can see she never even landed a punch. She swung on him, but she never successfully landed anything. He punched her twice in the face. She never got to successfully hit him at all. So this sheriff here is, in my opinion, an unethical liar. He is immoral, and he is biased. He is biased, and he is trying to cover his officers' misconduct under the color of law when it was absolutely no legal justification for what that officer did. And because he is failing to hold that officer accountable, this is an incentive for future officers to continue to use unnecessary force upon civilians when there's other ways to subdue and control a citizen. Had this officer just put the handcuffs on her from the very beginning, we would have never been here. But he chose to elevate this situation into a violent interaction because he wanted to do that, because he was angry, because he could not control his physical emotions, because he is battling his own impulses. And he decided to use the law as a way, as a shield to exert his anger and aggression upon this woman, because he probably doesn't like Black people. He probably has this prejudice towards Black people, and he probably sees them, especially the Black women, as animals that he can toss around like rag dolls.
Consequences here. Currently, there's an active pickup order for a juvenile for making threats to shoot up Idea Charter School because of this incident. So the SO will not tolerate those who violate the law and victimize our officers or any member of our communities. These jobs are tough enough.
Sir, your officer was not victimized. In fact, your officer victimized that woman. Yes, she may not have been verbally pleasant to deal with, but just because she's verbally not pleasant to deal with, it doesn't justify that officer using the level of unnecessary force upon her that he did. So your officer is not a victim in this situation. He is the perpetrator.
Without all of that. So we reject the flawed theory promoted by some that this type of unprovoked violence is shown to police officers is somehow justified. I ask.
Again, this liar comes on there and says unprovoked violence. Sir, it was provoked violence. Your officer provoked this woman to react the way she did because he initiated violence on this woman for no justifiable reason. Again, this man is unethical. He is a liar. He is an enabler, and he is immoral. And for him to go at night, to sleep at night, seeing that video and not being able to ethically, objectively look at that video and see it for what it was, makes him a disgusting human being.
Every member of this community who enjoys the privileges of a civil society, one organized by laws, to reject this flawed theory. No one is above the law. No one should be hurt or hinder a public servant doing the work that is a critical function to our community. So now I'll take any questions that you all may have. Sure. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just like what Tiffany Taylor says, the chief is making her the villain. Exactly. And that is what we see happen so much in our society. A lot of individuals, especially in the law enforcement, are quick to make African Americans the villain. Oh, they're the loud black person, or they're the angry black person, because it's the easier approach. And this is this type of systematic racism that we see inflicted upon African Americans, which is why a lot of African Americans naturally have this post-traumatic stress disorder when they encounter officers. And sometimes they do run away or resist because they're afraid for their life. They already, when they see an officer, they think, oh my God, this might be the last time I'm going to live. This person's going to shoot me. It's a natural engraved fear in a lot of African Americans. And it doesn't justify the way in which officers use this high, unnecessary level, unreasonable level of force that I don't think is in compliance with officer training. In fact, I've heard other officers talk about this story, and they have said, there was one particular officer, she's a black officer. I saw her comment. She stated that the level of force that officer used on that video was not justifiable. It is not in compliance with their training as officers. And in her opinion, based upon her legal training as an officer, she felt that officer was unjustified in how he engaged in that behavior. So this man coming up here trying to say that his officer was justified is a complete liar. And for him to look so serious and convincing as if he really is telling the truth on here is sickening to me, because he shows a lack of humanity. And also to see that this man is a black man, seeing this black woman being assaulted like that, and he has no level of empathy, just shows the disgust for this man. Tiffany also says it really does look like an attempted rape. He's getting off on this. Oh, I didn't even think of it like that, Tiffany. That's another disturbing part of it, seeing how he's able to manhandle her. There are sick men out there who have sick fetishes for this, and they're working in the police forces. They do work in the police forces, and they have, like she said, some of them have raped women, especially black women. Women who maybe have like a criminal record, who maybe they find them on the street, they will tell them, hey, if you don't do this sexual act for me, then I'm going to arrest you. And so some women have been raped. So like Tiffany said, that is not far-fetched that he might have some type of fetish and get off on gratification of roughhousing this woman and be able to use it under the color of law as a form of protection and justification for his conduct. But let's move on to the rest of this conference to see what kind of questions are being asked and what this liar is going to proceed to say. I have no respect for this man on the screen. I think he is disgusting. I feel like he is the prime example of why a lot of law enforcement are able to get away with the misconduct, because he doesn't have the decency or the morality to call it for what it really is. Ben Crump has been retained by her family to pursue this civil action, but under the climate that we are in right now, especially with the executive branch, I don't think there's going to be any type of justice for this woman. In fact, even if it does incite some type of protest, all it's going to do is give the executive branch grounds to invoke martial law, which is what the executive branch is desiring to do, and therefore stunt any future elections, which is what is the goal. So as sad as it is, I don't see this young lady getting any type of form of justice, no matter what people do. A lot of people are starting to see the news about this, and they are starting to, formulate together to try to, find a way to help speak out against it. And so this case is slowly starting to become a national issue. So I wanted to bring it to your attention, because you will start to see more and more of this case getting highlighted in the media, because I'm starting to see a lot of people talk about this case, and it's growing by the day in different social media outlets like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. But let's keep hearing what this guy is going to say next, because I just don't have respect for him. But let's see what he has to say.
Yeah. He's one of the school administrators. So if you'll see, the school administrators were there trying to keep everyone back. And largely, in my opinion, they helped keep that officer at least with some sort of comfort level while he's engaged with that individual.
Like, as you heard from this man here, the man that was in the plaid blue shirt with the umbrella, he was a school administrator. So if you would know a school staff member who basically is educating her children, has enough concern to intervene, you know that officer is wrong, because the officer works for the school. He basically has been retained by the school to basically, facilitate traffic and ensure the safety of kids going in and out of school, monitor the safety of the school, right? So if the own staff are there concerned for this woman's safety, to me, that justifies and shows the level of concern even the staff at the school had for this woman's life. He felt so much concern. He was the one trying to help her, trying to, get her up to breathe. He was so concerned for her safety. And this officer works close with him because a lot of these officers will talk with the staff, they know them personally. So to see that staff was on her side, to me, it shows even more reasons why this officer was in the wrong.
Individuals in the video that were violating the halo.
So there was an elderly, an older lady wearing a pinkish red shirt. I believe at one point she used an expletive and said she wasn't even worried about the 25 feet. And then there was a young girl, you saw her come in later after things started wrapping up a bit. You saw her come in later and grab the phone. She was one of the ones that was standing there with a lot of the chirping that was going on.
Again, what's problem with her grabbing a phone? What's wrong with her videotaping? These officers don't want the videos out there. That's why they enacted this bogus, unconstitutional HALO law that prevents civilians from recording, basically, because they have to be 25 feet away.
The one who got the phone, what happens to that person?
She's going to be arrested.
Oh. Also, you'd say the officer was doing his job. He followed all DJs.
Yeah, so the first thing we do before we even do this stuff, before we bring it out here, we look at it, we send it to our experts, our use of force experts, to look at everything that he does in that process. And he followed the rules, he followed the laws. It's shocking to me that you square up to fight a police officer just maybe when you're going to get a citation. You're probably going to end up going to jail because it's a third-degree felony for a revoked habitual traffic violator license. But
he said that the woman squared up to fight the officer. Let's go back to that video and see when she squared up to fight him, because what he's saying contradicts the video. I don't like when people lie, and he's literally lying. Now you can see at the very beginning of this encounter, where is she squaring up to fight this officer? She is set still. Her body is laid on her car. This is her car. And he has her arm twisted. So he has control over this woman. The way he has her arm, this is a technique that officers use to gain control over the suspect. He has control over her. Where is she squaring up to fight him?
You got me fucked up! You gonna punch me?
Now she pushed her arm down at him, okay? That was the first form of resistance. But after that, she no longer moves. Look how she does not move when he continues to elevate this force. You see that? He then twisted her around and body slammed her. Where is she squaring up to fight him? That sheriff is literally lying. Why did he need to body slam her in this part? She didn't fight him at this point. She didn't square up. She was saying, "You're hurting me, ow, ow." And then he body slams her to hurt her even more. He enjoyed inflicting pain. When she told him, "You're hurting me," when she's screaming, he got gratification from that. He enjoyed it. So then he body slammed her to get more gratification. Now he's enjoying more of the pain that he's inflicting on this woman. So he proceeds to choke her. Look at this. Body slams and chokes her to the ground. Where is she fighting him? Where does she square up and fight this man? He is physically enjoying the torture and pain that he is inflicting on this woman. So, like I said, this officer here in the press conference is literally lying. He made it sound like this woman began to initiate the encounter of the violence, that she was the one that started squaring up, trying to fight him. She never did that at first. She just told him how much pain she was in because of the way he had her arms. And he continued to, even every time she screamed in pain, he began to increase the level of force on her, as if he was getting enjoyment and getting pleasure from seeing this woman suffer. And the more she screamed, the more she cried, the more she told him he was hurting her, he began to body slam her. Then he began to put his arm around her neck. He was enjoying violating this woman. And I think this man has a predisposition to be violent. It's very disturbing, because this is the type of man that should not be in any police force, because he gets gratification from inflicting this level of force. And the fact that his supervisor is enabling this is more reason for why he's going to continue on in his career, finding excuses to exert this force on other women in the future.
It's remarkable to me that you're willing to stand up and go toe to toe, which is, I can't understand that.
The officer there doing traffic.
And of course, she was willing to go toe to toe towards the end of that encounter, because now she's fearful. She's not thinking like a rational person, because when she tried to scream in pain to tell this officer to stop twisting her arm, he body slammed her instead. When she cried out in pain that he was hurting her, he choked her instead of stopping to try to help her. So, of course, now you're not thinking like a reasonable person. You're not thinking about complying, because this man is not, even if you're standing still, he is going to beat and violate and choke you and body slam you. So now she thinks, my life is in danger. I need to try to get away. She's not thinking that he's an officer. He's not acting like an officer. He's not behaving like a trained professional community servant. He's behaving like a murderer. And to me, I feel like the fact that this man is enabling it in this press conference, it makes me start to wonder, does he beat his wife at home? Is he also abusive to his wife? Because for him to just enjoy watching this with no type of emotion on his face, and then turn around and defend this officer, and then turn around and mischaracterize the facts that are depicted on the video footage, is insanely disgusting. And the video that he uses to justify this violence, the body camera footage is not really clear. You can't really see the footage. The footage that you can see is from the pedestrian's perspective. And that video that I just showed you is more clear to see that this woman was not fighting him until he started to exert violence, unnecessary and unreasonable and unjustifiable violence upon her first.
As far as I know, there was a scuffle getting Bert into restraint.
Yeah.
Can you explain what took so long, and also were there other officers, I guess, who were along the way?
He was the only one that was there. He was there by himself. There were other officers that were on the way, but sometimes if you're in different locations, Tarek, it takes a little bit to get there. He was, I believe, I didn't speak to him directly. I believe he was trying to hold her until she kind of gassed out, and then eventually you saw, put her hands behind her back so he can get those handcuffs on her.
But why did he need to hold her and choke her until she gassed out? So basically what this man is saying is the officer was going to choke her out until she passed out from being choked. And then he was going to handcuff her. Where in the police manual is that justified? Where? Why didn't he at the beginning of this encounter just take her other left arm and put it behind her and arrest her? She wasn't doing anything at that time. She was standing still. She was only verbally expressing the pain she was in. This officer right here is disgusting.
She was saying that she couldn't breathe. It was kind of hard to tell what exactly kind of.
Yeah, I'll give you a test. Jake, I'll give you a test. Go home and let your wife choke you and try to talk. You can see, you can hear whether someone's their airways being blocked or you can't talk. She could breathe. If you look underneath, you can see that his hands weren't even knotted together where he was pulling. He was just.
This is sick what he's saying. And this is a big misconception that a lot of officers do. They all think like this. It's a misconception. They think that if the person is able to speak, then they're able to breathe, which is not true. And that is evidenced by what we've seen happen to George Floyd. You remember George Floyd? He was on video where he was murdered in front of the whole world. Well, he was the officer had his knee on George Floyd's neck, and George Floyd kept crying that he couldn't breathe. And the officers, they have this misconception that, well, if the person's talking, then they can breathe. And that was proven to be false in the George Floyd case, because during the trial, the coroner and the medical physician who examined his body determined that it was a homicide and that he died because his airways were blocked, preventing him from breathing. So even if a person's able to talk to you, does not mean that they're able to adequately breathe or have air to sufficiently sustain them for life. So these officers have very poor training, and that this is the reason why we see a lot of people dying with these chokeholds and the necks on the knees on the necks and stuff like that, because it does cut off the airway when they do that. And when you have your arm around the person's neck, it can cut off your circulation, and you still could be able to talk. Like if you pull someone's neck like that, they might be able to talk, but they can't get enough air out to breathe. And I find this man to be very disturbing, because he justifies why a lot of officers and the misconceptions that a lot of officers do, which is what happened in the George Floyd incident. The officer thought, well, he can talk, so he can breathe, so he's fine. Whereas in that situation, we saw on video footage that man was losing air and he was dying on the video, where he eventually just blacked out.
Holder to make sure that he could keep control of her, and it's pretty obvious he didn't want to go too far. He wanted to make sure he followed the rules and made sure he did this the best way that he could.
That is complete BS. Complete BS. And that's why you see this man trying to think of a way to formulate what he said. Complete BS. This officer was the one that wanted to elevate this into a violent encounter. What this sheriff has said is complete BS. If you watch the video that we just watched, this officer was the one that elevated it to this violent encounter. He's the one fighting this girl like a WWF star when she's not even moving around. At this point, now she fights him, of course, but after he already had beat the heck, choked her and body slammed her, of course. Did you see her hit him at all? She didn't land any punches. He punched her twice in the head, pulled her head, and body slammed her a third time. This is the third time she's been body slammed on the ground. Now she loses her phone, her camera. He punched her with so much force, she fell to the ground a third time. This officer, and the fact that this sheriff is saying, oh, he was trying so hard not to make it more violent. He was the one that was elevating it to the violent situation. He is the one that's elevating it. It's not the woman, it's him, based on my only observations of the video.
You got it, Cat. That's the devil, Cat. Okay? That's the devil. That police officer is the devil. Okay?
Now he chokes her and forcefully slams her head into the pavement, then puts his knee on her head. How is that police training to put a knee when you weigh more physical weight than a woman onto this woman's head on the pavement ground? So the fact that this sheriff is saying that his officer was trying his every way to not be forceful is a lie. A complete lie. It's just disgusting how he can boldly say this when it's a complete lie. So let's try to go back to this little news conference. This news conference has got me feeling a kind of way, because he's sitting here lying.
And I commend him for that.
You commend him? Oh, no.
The hard part is this is not an easy job, and it's not getting any easier. Now, we all volunteer to do this, right? We want to do this because we love where we live. It's not an easy job. It's making it more difficult when police officers come out here and try to affect the law lawfully and do the things that we're supposed to do, and then you get surrounded like that.
Lawfully do what you're supposed to do. So you're lawfully supposed to body slam and fight a civilian as a wrestling match when she's just verbally expressing the pain she's in? Make it make sense.
It's dangerous. Anything can happen. So we want to make sure that we let folks know as part of a public service announcement that if you do this and you're asked not to do it, you're going to get arrested, because we're going to review it and you're going to get arrested. I care about this community being safe, and I care about the police officers that work here being safe, which is very important. You have to have some comfort level that you're going to know that you can go out there, take care of your job, and go home safely. So we want to make sure people understand that.
Is this the first time JSO's made an arrest using the HALO law?
This is the very first time, yes, sir.
Sheriff, to follow up on Tarek's question.
Yeah.
Was he working the school zone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't answer that.
Or was he just passing through?
No, he was working at school, not a school zone. So we have a safe schools program. You know, when after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas situation.
He was the resource officer there.
No, he wasn't a resource officer. We provide officers to schools in our city to do safe schools, to make sure the schools stay safe. And he was working in that with that program.
And then the initial reason.
Question: how is this officer keeping schools safe by exerting unnecessarily unreasonable, irrational, excessive force onto the parents who bring their children there? Aren't you supposed to be a community servant to the parents and the students that go to that school? That woman was a parent. Her children and other kids had to see a tormenting situation where an officer who is meant to protect the school is exerting unnecessarily deadly force on another parent at the school. It's more so like the officer is the danger to the school. Like, why would you want to bring your kid to a school when you have an officer who is using excessive, unnecessary force on the parents that go there? I would not want to bring my kid there. I would immediately withdraw my child out of that school out of fear of the officer there who is using unnecessary force on parents. And because I don't want my kids to see that violence, and I don't want to be a subject of the violence, you know, if I'm there to just drop my child off. A parent doesn't want to go to the school to drop their child off or pick their child up and be physically battered by an officer who's supposed to protect them. And again, I'm not saying this woman was in the right for verbally, you know, speaking to him a certain way, for lying to him, for being hesitant to go back to the car with him. I'm not saying she's in the right for that. What I'm saying is the officer elevated an unnecessary level of force and deadly force on this woman when it wasn't necessary, because during the inception of the encounter, she was not physically fighting him at that point. He easily could have took her other arm and just handcuffed her, but he did not make that decision. He chose to exert certain high level degree of deadly force on her, which caused her to react the way she did because she felt she had no other choice.
He made contact with her again. Can you just go over that?
She left her car unattended, illegally parked in the roadway, and it was still running. And I think this is just an assumption. I want to make sure you're clear. We're clear on this. I think he saw that. Someone talked to him about that because that's part of his duties there.
Now this sheriff is proceeding to make up facts that are not in evidence. He is speculating. He hasn't talked, now mind you, he hasn't talked to the officer that was involved in the situation. So he doesn't know the actual facts. He is now proceeding here in this conference to make up a lie, to make it look like some person approached the officer about concern for the car. That did not happen, but this is how it's evidence to show you how these officers, some of them will lie and make up facts. Even there's times when officers will lie in their police reports to make up stories that didn't really occur. And that's what makes it a concern when you have an unethical officer working in the field, because they will be the ones to make up lies, and that can cause a citizen to be arrested for a very serious crime and therefore have to serve decades in prison for a lie that was told by an officer.
When school's letting out and we began to approach and have the discussion, you saw how it played out from there.
So when Griff was arrested, the woman in the pink shirt, she was arrested.
Yes.
And the person who later in the video broke the HALO's violation to grab the phone, that person will be arrested.
Yes, and the juvenile has a pickup order for threatening the school.
So how does this work for officers? I mean, I know the HALO law's been in effect, but just as far as if we that space.
And look how these particular officers unequally apply the law. So he's saying here that they're going to arrest the person who picked up the woman's phone. Why is that a crime? That person did not intermeddle with the officer, did not touch the officer. They just went and picked up their phone because the lady asked to call her mother because, you know, she probably could die on this pavement and she wanted her mom to be there, basically. So again, they're just trying to use this. A lot of these officers, they do not apply the law fairly. If they don't like you and they don't like what you did, they'll apply it against you, but they won't apply it against someone else that they may favor. So the school staff member who came in he was the one actually intermeddling, right? He touched the woman. He tried to get her up. He raised her up. He tried to, intermeddle into the actual encounter. The man with the plaid and the umbrella, he's not going to be charged when he was the one that actually was physically intermeddling. And I'm glad he did. But I'm just saying, you can see this is evidence to show you how the law can be unequally and unjustifiably and subjectively applied to certain people that the law officer doesn't like. They have a personal vendetta against because they maybe don't like that this person picked up a phone. So now they're going to charge him with the unnecessary crime. Officers have discretion, meaning they can choose who they want to enforce the law upon. So when you have an unethical officer in the field of line of duty, that's a dangerous man. Because if he doesn't like what you said, if he doesn't like your demeanor, he can charge you with upgraded unnecessary charges that can end up causing you to serve decades in prison, sustain fines, and then now you are oppressed by the judicial system and you can't get a job. And now there's this systematic oppression on you, which is why it's dangerous when you have unethical people like this in the legal field who can mischaracterize and calculate their way of applying the law on certain people that they may not personally like. It's actually quite disgusting. You could see how he's doing that in this instance, because in the video, there's no indications that he's going to charge that staff member who actually physically touched the woman, tried to pull the officer off of her, tried to move the officer's arm. That person's not going to get charged when that person clearly violated the HALO law, if you want to apply that law. But they're going to apply it on a little kid who picked up a phone, who never even got involved in it. It doesn't make sense.
The officers can do their job.
Yeah, so we'll train on it. We'll make sure we discuss, and they normally do that. You get yourself in a situation like that, you normally say, get back, give me some space. But we'll train on it to make sure that they give that warning to get back. Sometimes if it's bad enough, Tariq, they're not going to be able to say you have to give me 25 feet.
Went to go pick up the phone. The officer never gave him any warnings. The officer didn't tell him in particular, hey, get back, don't touch that phone, you're intermeddling. He didn't say anything to the kid. So how did he violate the HALO Act if their warning was not given? Because the element requires in that law, in order for a person to violate the HALO Act, the officer has to warn that person to say, hey, you got to get 25 feet back. You're interfering with my investigation. But the officer never gave the boy any warnings at all. He didn't say anything, in fact, to the boy when the boy picked up the phone. So again, I don't see how there is a violation of that law, but you will see how some officers who are unethical will try to fabricate evidence. Now they're going to try to fabricate fake evidence to get this kid to get charged. Because like I said, you could see in this news conference how this sheriff is literally making up facts as he goes that doesn't align with the video evidence. He's lying, saying the woman squared up and tried to fight him from the beginning when she never did at first. At first, she did not. She did not square up until after the officer twisted her arm around, body slammed her, chokeholded her in a chokehold, body slammed her a second time. And that is when she started to resist, because now she feels like she's in a situation where she cannot get out of in a safe situation, because she did not resist him at the beginning. And yet he continued to elevate violence on her for no reason, no justifiable reason. So at that point, now she feels like I'm in danger. If I don't try to get away from this guy, he's going to kill me. And there's nothing I can do because I tried to tell him he's hurting me and he's still continuing to increase the level of pain when I cry out in agony.
They're going to say get back, and that's going to serve as that warning to get back. So we'll train on it to make sure that happens, and we'll move from here. My hope is that we don't have those issues. I don't mind people, and I can tell you this, I don't mind people standing beyond 25 feet, videoing or saying what you're going to say, because people are going to do that, and you have the right to say what you want to say. But if it gets to a point where it creates an uncomfortable level for our police officer who may or may not get hurt by someone in a crowd, then we have to draw the line.
Do you know the person who captured the cell phone video? Were they one of the people that violated the HALO law or no?
No, not that I know of. There were a lot of people that were standing there that weren't really even screaming. You know, there were just some agitators there, a lot of agitators there, and we were able to find the ones that definitely disobeyed that law.
Again, people have free speech. And what I'm seeing happening now in this climate is there's a lot of suppression of free speech. He's saying that these people were agitating the situation. That's not a violation of the law, sir. This shows either your level of incompetence and your inability to understand and comprehend the law, or you're just straight up unethical. You can agitate and cuss out an officer, and you could be 30 feet away and say, F you, you did it. And that's not violating anything. So the fact that you're agitated or a little bit hurt by the words you're hearing, that does not violate any laws. But these officers, like I said, they're very arrogant and they don't like to be cussed out or being called names. And so they will try to fabricate a law and create facts that are not actually factual. They'll create false information in a police report to create a violation of the law in order to get that person arrested. And that's what you can see all of the unethical things he's saying right now. Oh, there were people agitating. It doesn't matter. I could be 40 feet away and cuss the officer out and call him all the names in the book. That doesn't mean I violated the HALO Act. You only violate the HALO Act if you physically step into that 25 feet parameter, and then you start to physically intervene in the officer's investigation. So this is where he's getting it wrong. He's basically saying, oh, well, at least there were people agitating, so I'm going to get them arrested because they were verbally oppressed, saying what they don't like about this. They're violating the law. Like, no, they're not, sir.
We'll make sure we don't just, we don't want a scatter effect. We want to just point out the ones that violated that law and then take action from there.
Do you have any advice for the public? I guess they're witnessing an officer, in a physical altercation or whatever. Your sort of best advice in terms of what they should do to avoid violating this law?
Just make sure you stand far enough away and allow him or her to do their jobs. Like I said, it's a difficult job. It's not easy. Recently, things have changed dramatically. Cameras on everyone's cell phone. People want to get videos and post them. We understand. That's fine. It's part of the process. We get it. But my advice would be, don't get within that space. And when you're asked, or once he says get back, or she says get back, then get back. Get back, move away far enough so that he can continue to do his job or her job safely. We don't want them getting into a situation where they may find themselves hurt by someone that's watching. And that happens, and it has happened. And I'm thankful to the Florida legislature for passing this law, because it helps.
Discretionary law, though, as well, kind of like the administrator who helped wouldn't be charged, but the person who got too close would.
Well, when you have an administrator helping, standing there with an umbrella, just helping and trying to hold people back, you wouldn't charge that individual anyway.
Okay, again, this officer is lying. I can't take it. He's lying. The administrator was not pulling people back. He was not helping the officer. In fact, he was trying to help the lady because he was worried about her safety. So again, what I'm trying to say is these officers are being biased. This is a clear demonstration to U.S. citizens that officers can apply the law and enforce the law on whoever they want. So this administrator was the one that was in clear violation of the HALO Act because he actually approached the officer. He was like kind of lifting the woman up. He was involved in the actual physical situation. He's like trying to pull the officer off of her neck. He's trying to help her. At no time did he try to tell the crowd to step back. So again, this chief is trying to fabricate and make up facts that aren't not the facts. They're faking. He's making up fake information to try to justify his unequal, unjustifiable application of the HALO Act. So they're choosing to enforce the law on certain people they don't really like because whatever ego was involved with that officer, but then they're choosing to let the administrator get away with it because we work for this school, so we don't want to offend the people we work for, but this person that just picked up a phone, we don't like that he picked up the phone, so we're going to arrest him. You see how he's misapplying the law right here and completely lying when we just saw the video?
Because part of it is being harassing, not just standing there. You have to be able to be harassing them or doing something to make them feel like they're unsafe.
Again, if you want to argue and apply the HALO Act, you could argue that school administrator was a threat because he was actually physically trying to pick up the woman, try to get her away from the officer. But again, this guy is really making up lies as we go with a straight face, and he has no blink. He's not even blinking his eyes saying this lie.
They weren't doing that. There was others around that were. So it's not necessarily discretionary. You can look at the statute, follow the statute, see what it says, and apply the statute to the people that are violating it.
Again, he's lying. It's discretionary because they're using discretion in terms of who they're going to enforce that law upon. Because again, if we want to look at the black letter law for what it is, you can arrest that administrator and you can arrest everybody because clearly that administrator was intermeddling into the investigation. I'm not saying that administrator should get arrested because I am thankful that he tried to help the lady. But I'm trying to show you a demonstration of how these officers use their subjective emotions to enforce the laws on whoever they want to enforce it on, which means it's an unequal application of the law. And what shows the very disturbing, unfair usage of the law upon certain minorities and certain individuals, which means our judicial system is very highly flawed in how they apply the law. Now, I'm not going to continue to listen to this guy because he's just saying a bunch of BS at this point, but I want to kind of show you another clip of how we can see that some of these officers are using unnecessary force on individuals who are African American for no justifiable reason. I mean, there is another situation that just happened recently. There is a man, he was actually quite intelligent, this kid here on the screen. He actually put his hands up. He was a smart, intelligent kid. He was quiet. He didn't argue with the officers. He actually put his hands up. He was not resisting. And yet the officer breaks the man's window and he proceeds to drag him out of the car and exert force for no justified reason. So let's take a look at that video.
The cell phone footage is from February, but it was just posted this past weekend. And then the body camera videos were released yesterday. Officers say they pulled over 22-year-old William McNeil for not wearing a seatbelt and not turning on his headlights during inclement weather. After McNeil said his window was broken, and an officer told him 4 times to open the door and exit or he'd shatter the glass.
There's no rain. It doesn't matter. You're still required to have headlights on. Can you pull that law up? Huh? Can you pull that law up? Yeah, when you step out of the car, I will. Can you call your supervisor? Huh? Can you call your supervisor? All right, go for it.
Exit the vehicle now. Exit the vehicle. Show me your hands.
Here. I'm here. What is your reason, sir? Step out. What is your reason? Step out now. All right. No.
The officers involved are not being criminally charged, but the officer who smashed the window and punched him is suspended pending an internal review. NBC's Aaron Gilchrist is following this story for us. Also with me is Paul Butler.
So that's another example just to show you how these officers are elevating certain encounters with African American individuals who are compliant with the law. Who that individual that you just saw got punched, he knew his law, he knew his rights. He did not have to step out the car because he wasn't violating anything. It was a minor traffic violation. And that type of situation, they didn't have probable cause to arrest him. All they needed to do was give him a citation and he would be on his way. The man did not resist. He did not pose any danger. He put his hands up. This man proceeds to punch the window out and punch him straight bone in the face for no justifiable reason. And that happened just recently. That demonstrates to you the level of unjustifiable force that these officers are using on African Americans just because they feel the need to do that. And they don't see African Americans as human beings. They see them as animals that they can use whatever violence they want on them to control and get the result that they want. And it's actually quite disturbing, which is why I feel like it's something that we need to talk about, because unfortunately, it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. And what can we do to stop it? I really can't even tell you guys, because it just seems like in the climate we're in right now, it's unclear what we really can do. So I'm asking you, what do you think we can do about it? How can we stop this type of aggression on citizens? And maybe we can come to some type of resolution, because it's actually quite sad that this is happening in this time in our country. So keep those families in their prayers. It's just gracious that they are actually both still alive. That's the only thing that I'm really happy about. We don't have to worry about someone being buried because of the unnecessary force that we're seeing happening. But like, comment,